Hi there, come on in. I'm Fred Trost, and I have master angler Richard Swan here. You've probably heard of Dick Swan. He uses things like, I don't even know if you can see this, monofilament line. You can barely see it. 2-pound test. Watch how this breaks. Just like that. Dick Swan says he caught this fish, a Chinook salmon, on 2-pound test line, the largest fish in the world ever taken on that. Dick, you got a story to explain to us. That's coming up in just a minute. We're going to talk about a lot of other things, reptiles, Indian fishing, a lot of things coming up right now on Michigan Outdoors.
From the rugged shore and woodland.
Probably next Thursday night, at the time you're watching Michigan Outdoors, you'll be able to hear some frogs and maybe toads, some different critters in the marshes, talking to us like we did last Thursday night. But Dean Primo, you're from the herpetology department at MSU. With the snow we've had, I don't think we're going to have too many marsh sounds this evening, do you?
No, I don't think so. They're underwater right now.
Okay, but let's talk a little bit. We were ready in case the sounds were here, but we do have some slides of some little frogs, the first ones that emerge in the marshes. Why don't you tell us about what's out there and what we can hear maybe in the next few days?
Well, last week when the weather was warm, we started to hear frogs calling, and the one that you see there on the screen is the wood frog, and he's one of the earlier frogs to come out in the springtime. And the sounds that they make we describe kind of as a chuckling noise. And there'll be a few of them together in a pond.
Mm-hmm. And those, how big are those?
Those are about a half-inch long. They're a rather small frog.
Oh, a tiny frog. Now, what about another type that's common?
Well, the other common early spring frogs would be the western coarse frog. These guys have little stripes on their back. They're also small frogs.
Now, that sound is familiar.
Yes, we like to describe that sound as rubbing your fingers over a plastic comb, a breep sound. And they are in the roadside ditches and in the woodland ponds at this time of year, and they'll call as soon as the weather warms up again.
Now, why are these frogs calling at this time of year? Is this strictly for mating, to attract females?
For the most part, yes.
So it's the males that do the calling?
It's only the males that are calling, and they are attracting females to the pond. They'll deposit their eggs in the pond, the tadpoles will grow up, and then the little frogs will go back to the woods at the end of the summer.
Okay, now that comb sound was the woodland chorus frog.
Chorus frog.
Western chorus frog.
Correct.
Now the spring peeper that everyone...
That's another real familiar sound. A single peeping note, very piercing, and a large chorus of them will sound deafening if you're very near it. And these also are early breeders. At this time of year, they're ready to go as soon as the weather moves up to around 40 degrees.
Now, will these little frogs, these little peepers, of course, they're only about a half-inch long, too.
Or smaller.
Will they be around all summer?
Yes, you could run across them on wet mornings in the woods during most of the summer. They're a type of tree frog, and you can run across them right up until fall.
Okay, well, let's see what you have in the sack here. You have a larger frog, something of larger size that fishermen will see in the water.
That's correct.
You'll see along the edge of a pond. Kids like to catch them, take them home.
This is called the leopard frog, and it is one that fishermen use sometimes for fishing for largemouth, smallmouth bass, and so on. And it's out in the ponds now, too.
Okay, the sound of a leopard frog is...
We like to describe that as taking a wet balloon and rubbing your fingers across it, making that kind of a squeaky sound, sometimes a little lower sound than that. But they'll be calling again a little later than the others, but they move to the ponds fairly early.
Okay, now what function do frogs and all these little peepers, what function do they have in nature?
Well, there are very many of them, and they play an important role in the food chain. They are eaten by mammals, nocturnal mammals, and birds, and therefore are quite useful in that way.
Okay, well, that's our frogs that are out at this time of year, if we can just get rid of this darn snow. But look at what we have here. This is one of the ugliest creatures going, aside from maybe a mud puppy. But this is a salamander, and something that you might find in a window well around your home at this time of year. Dean, would you explain why?
Well, at this time of year, these salamanders are moving to the ponds again to breed, and they move on rainy nights. And we also get a lot of calls in our office, people saying we've got several of these in our window well or have moved into a hole. They just fall in that as they're walking to the ponds.
Okay, and these are amphibians, and they have to be kept damp. School kids oftentimes like to pick these up and take them home, put them in an aquarium. If they do that, what should they feed them?
These eat worms and small insects in the wild. In captivity, if you can collect worms, it's nice, but liver and so on will do in the wintertime.
Okay, well, these are salamanders. We've talked about frogs. These are things that are coming out right now, which we haven't heard for some time in Michigan Outdoors. Thanks a lot, Dean. We're going to have you back to talk about snakes in about a month or so.
Very well.
And we're going to move over to the hot seat right now. An issue, is it a burning issue in the news? Indian fishing back again in the headlines. Tom Washington.
Hi, Fred.
You're going to drop some real bombs on us here. We've gotten letters from viewers who say things like, this is from Robert Strauss from Burton. He says, talking about fishing in the UP, it's sickening to see our licensed monies going for fish management just to end up in the nets of people who do nothing but take and never put. And he's talking about the Indians, who, of course, have been using gill nets. These gill nets, here's a Menominee type net. Of course, this is where the fish stick their heads through there, and they don't get out. This kills fish.
That's right.
And only the Indians can use gill nets.
That's correct. Since 1974, only Indians can use gill nets, except in some special permit cases.
Okay, and we'll flip open here to the latest issue of Michigan Out of Doors. Here you have a little article in here. Indians set their own fishing rules, and here are the ceded waters. These waters here were granted to the Indians in 1837, according to a treaty that was made. Now, what's the current status? The Indians have unlimited rights right now?
They have unlimited rights in all of these waters. You'll notice
The
that's...
dark ones here.
Yes, that's just about everything east of Marquette and Lake Superior, north of Alpena and Lake Huron, and north of Grand Haven and Lake Michigan. That's about 60% of all the water that the state of Michigan has.
And Judge Fox has just ruled that Indians can take walleye, salmon.
Yes, he's expanded their opportunities, and now this year they will be able to take salmon, they will be able to take walleyes in these waters. They've been taking, as you know, lake trout, whitefish, and other species.
Okay, now let's get down to it, Tom. Let's get down to what's been making the headlines. You came out a few days ago, at the end of last week, with a proposal for the Natural Resources Commission, the DNR, to do what?
Well, we'd like them to stop spending licensed dollars in those waters. It just does not make any sense to us for the sportsmen of this state, for the licensed fishermen of this state, to be putting up millions of dollars annually for the Indians to take out of the lake.
Okay, how much money are we talking about, and what is it going for?
Something in excess of $2 million a year is spent by the department in managing and stocking the waters that you've just shown.
Okay, they're stocking lake trout, stocking
Salmon.
steelhead, salmon.
Steelhead, brown trout, so forth.
And you feel that most of these, or many of these, are being taken out by the Indians using the gill nets?
Well, we know in specific areas that the Indians have totally decimated the populations of lake trout in particular, in Grand Traverse Bay, Little Traverse Bay, the Straits of Mackinac, Whitefish Bay, in those waters. And of course, wherever they're allowed to fish unregulated, they're going to decimate the fishery. Now, that's going to be carried into walleyes, which are just coming back in Bay de Noc and the Upper Peninsula, salmon everywhere they'll be able to take. And the point that we're trying to make is that since we can't seem to win in the courts, and since negotiations have been frustrated at every step of the way, it just does not make sense for sportsmen to continue to spend their license dollars in these waters. We've got a lot of other water in this state, almost all of Lake Huron, southern Lake Michigan, our inland fishery, thousands of inland lakes and streams, which these dollars could be spent in, where the people that are putting up the money could get some advantage from it.
But there's going to be a howl come up. Already Dr. Tanner said yesterday, he says, this is a ludicrous proposal, that it's irresponsible to stop stocking in those waters, even though the Indians are taking them out.
What's irresponsible is to keep offering this foreign aid to these people at the expense of the license buyers in this state. Now, if the state of Michigan wants to take care of these people on the social welfare roll through fishing, then let them do it from the general fund, not out of the Fish and Game Protection Fund and not out of the licensed dollars. It's not an obligation of only the sport fishermen in this state. It's an obligation of the general public. That's what the court has determined. So let the money come from there then. That's the thing. And sportsmen have traditionally had their money siphoned off into one area or another. We have this problem with hunting license monies also. And we're just tired of it, very frankly, Fred, and now is the time to put a stop to it, because we're not making any headway through the negotiating avenue.
Well, you know the DNR is going to say no. The DNR is going to say, well, it's our obligation, we have to do the best we can, and we're going to continue planting. Howard Tanner has already said that.
Well, Howard Tanner has said that, but Howard Tanner works for a Natural Resources Commission that may not say that. And all of us live under the laws which are established by the Michigan legislature. And I know there is great sympathy in the Michigan legislature for something to be done to put a stop to this waste of money.
Whoa, strong words from Tom Washington, Executive Director of Michigan United Conservation Clubs. Obviously, Tom, you're going to be taking this battle to the commission, to the legislature. What do you folks think about that? What do you sportsmen think about that? Do you feel that Tom Washington is right? We should cease putting the money in. Write to us, Michigan Outdoors, Box 1, East Lansing, 48823. Register your opinion, and we will pass it on. Thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you, Fred.
Moving off of the hot seat right now, get off the Indian fishing subject for a minute, get over to turkey hunting. Al Stewart. Al, good having you on the show. Bob Garner, you two guys are both in conservation, the outdoors. You work for the Pontiac district of the DNR, wildlife biologist. Probably the foremost turkey caller in Michigan. Right, Al?
Well, there's a lot of good turkey callers out there.
Isn't he, Bob? Isn't he the best?
Absolutely.
Okay, Bob Garner, you work for the House Conservation Committee, and I'm sure you're going to hear from Tom Washington through the legislature.
I'm sure we will. He does a good job over there in the legislature.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens on Indian fishing. But right now we have turkey season coming up, April 22nd. And Bob, this new issue of Michigan Outdoors magazine has an article by you. And you say outsmarting turkeys is easy? Easy? Yeah, that's what you say. Turkey calling is easy. I don't know about that. That's not what I've heard about turkey hunting. I've heard it's the most difficult, most challenging sport there is, even more difficult than deer hunting.
Fred, yeah, I heard that too when I first started to learn how to call turkeys, and I can tell you now, it's a lot of bunk. It's really pretty easy. If you know a few of the basic calls, use a friction caller to start out with, you can learn how to call a turkey in as little as 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay, well, that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to have this master turkey caller, Al Stewart, show me. Now, Al, with this box call, all you do is just...
Yeah, that's all there is to it.
No sweat, folks. No sweat. That's a cinch. Now that I have that mastered, and what we're doing here is imitating the call of a hen turkey, right? To get the gobblers to come in. And this is what hunters will be doing starting April 22nd in the northern woods. But you're going to do us a symphony here, Al. Show us all the different things you can use to call turkeys. Now this, come on, this isn't a turkey call.
No, but it's an owl call, which helps you locate the turkeys either late in the evening or earlier in the morning when it's still dusk or dark.
Obviously homemade.
These are ones you can make at home, and it's just out of a 6-ounce juice can and a piece of copper tubing. And
Let's
just
see
by
how that
blowing
works.
into it, you'll make an owl sound. There's a couple owls in Michigan, but the one that you commonly hear is the barred owl, which says, "Who cooks for you? Who cooks for you all?"
And that will get a response from the gobbler.
Normally, a tom will respond to something like that.
Okay.
As the day goes on and it gets lighter, we usually use a crow call to help locate a bird.
Okay, well, let's go to what I think is probably the easiest and most practical call, the diaphragm call.
Yeah, the diaphragm's a nice call. It leaves your hands free. That's the main thing. Normally, we recommend that a person get a box collar, a friction-type collar, and a diaphragm call.
Okay, now I've used one of these before. Let me, you give me a critique, see how I do. I've turned it around. Put it in the roof of your mouth.
Right.
You ready? Mm-hmm. Okay, watch, no hands. How was it?
Well, you're getting better.
Oh, yeah?
What you want to try and do is get 2 notes in your call. Sort of a high note, and then it drops off to a low note, similar to this.
I'd say turkey calling is easy.
Simple.
If you have somebody to show you like this, or a cassette tape is a pretty good idea, isn't it?
That's a real good way to learn.
Now, Al, what I want to see here is some of these other calls. Let me just rummage through here. You're known for making a lot of wacky things that make turkey sounds. This looks like a film canister with some of that diaphragm material on there. How do you use that?
This is just dental dam that you can get from your dentist, something they give you when they do a root canal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's simply just by blowing across it, you can make all the sounds. Make a
Amazing.
fairly good yelp, and you can make a little cluck.
Okay, let's see what else you have here. Well, a turkey wing bone call.
Yeah, this
How do you do that?
this is a wing bone that's usually made from the turkey that you shoot. This is the main sounding board, and this is what gives you some volume. And just by kissing into it, you can make a fairly good yelp.
That sounds easy. Is
Now,
this,
that-
this is one of these?
Yeah, this is just another variation of it. Just kiss into it. Very good.
Perfect.
Very good.
Oh,
With some
hey.
practice, you'll get it. Now, you can mount a horn onto it to give it some volume or whatever.
Now, come on, Al. What's the deal here?
Well, this is something usually when you're trout fishing in the afternoon after you've been hunting turkeys and you find a bird, why, you hear them and you want to locate them, but you don't have any turkey calls. Well, all you have to do is just knock the ashes out of your pipe and make sure there's no live ones in there, and then just kiss into it like we did with the other calls.
Now, that's amazing. Okay, the cocktail straw. This I gotta see.
Well, usually when you're telling stories about your turkey hunting trips, you're at a place where they usually have a cocktail straw. And to get everybody in the group into your story, why, you can just pull this out of your drink and...
That's not as easy as it looks, Bob.
And you can
it's not
call
difficult.
turkeys right in.
Well, that takes
It's
some
not
skill.
hard.
Al, why don't you wrap it up here, this turkey calling seminar? Show us how you call them when you're hunting with no call.
Well, you can use your own voice, and just by sucking air in, you can make some fairly good purrs. A little putt.
How about a gobble? Okay, Bob, your turn.
Oh, no.
Oh, no? Well, Bob Greiner's
without a
article,
call.
yeah, your article in Michigan Out of Doors tells all about that, and this has just hit the newsstands. And, well, you guys, good luck turkey season. You drew a permit, but you didn't.
That's right.
But you're going to be out calling for some folks.
About 16 days this year.
Sounds good. Well, thanks a lot, Bob. And now, some little primers on
Thank
turkey
you.
calling. Now we have a big gobbler as one of our trophies right now in our trophy report. Here's a trophy bear, not really trophy size as it lays over the white rock in the foreground, but for 16-year-old Keith Siddell from Leonard, this 150-pound black bear is a trophy. He wrote me and said he and his dog Bill worked long and hard with his family's hunting party in the UP for this bear last fall, and like a true bear hunter, Keith says this bear will make some very good eating. Won't be long before we have complaints of nuisance bears causing problems this summer in various places around Michigan. Look at the long tines on this 8-point buck. You can see why Rick Bellinger from Caledonia thought he had a winner in the big buck contest. But he wasn't one of the top contenders this past year. That just goes to show you what big bucks Michigan produced in 1981. That doesn't take anything away from Rick Bellinger's prize buck, though. Still a trophy to be proud of. The one with the full beard is Jim Wilkes, who's holding this 20-pound turkey that has a 9¼ beard, a big gobbler, which he took last spring from the Mayo district. Not only an exciting bird to hunt, but a real prize on the dining room table. Jim Wilkes from Wyandotte can testify to that. Here's a lake trout like you rarely see in Michigan. It was caught out of the boundaries of the Indian fishing waters coming from the Baraga area in the UP last June. 31½ pounds caught on a dodger and fly near bottom in 175 feet of water. The lucky master angler is Marvin Wammer of Negaunee. And this picture here I include in our trophy report because third grader Stephanie House from Onstead had her parents take a picture of me giving her a little peck on the cheek at Outdoorama last February. She sent the photo to me to autograph. What a catch, Stephanie! 6 feet, 185 and single? Hey, those pretty brown eyes will catch me every time. And I'd say, Stephanie, you caught the trophy of the week. Now, I know, Dick, you're not supposed to advertise on public TV, are we? But what the hey, Stephanie, one thing, that's catch and release, so keep that in mind. Speaking of catch and release, speaking of fishing and trophies, Dick Swan, you have here essentially 3 world record fish, right?
Correct.
What do we have? This is a steelhead?
Steelhead.
Pick that up there, because we have coming up here the World Lightline Steelhead Championship, right? A tournament?
Tournament.
That is going to take place, what, the 14th through the 18th?
of April, right, next Wednesday.
Okay, now, if people want information on this, they can write to us, but this is what, I guess, the epitome of what people are going after. With light lines, and light lines, we're talking about 2 and 4 pound test. Oh, look, you can see it right there in the monitor. This is 2 pound test line, and watch what happens to it when I just put the slightest pressure on it. I mean, it breaks like thread, which really it is. Dick, how in the world do you catch world record size fish like that with 2 pound test line?
With a lot of luck.
A lot of luck,
A
well,
lot
I
of
guess
luck,
so, and
yeah.
also you have special rods which you built. Let's give a little demonstration here. I always enjoy doing this. To show how, if I was a fish on the end of the line with 2 pound test, and you know, we're talking about a fish that might weigh 10, 15 pounds, why is it that I'm not going to break this line when I take a run?
The rods are designed to absorb the shock that the fish or whatever will put on it. And you can just see right here we have about a 12-foot shock absorber. That's about all it amounts to.
So if a fish runs and just scoots right on out like a Chinook will, it just
Yes.
can't break the line.
Right. You set the drag properly so he can go downriver. You don't stop him. You don't stop him with anything. But just so the rod is doubled over and it'll absorb it all the way.
And this will tire a fish out?
That rod will whip you. You can feel the pressure on your fingers. And I'm going to get cramps after a few minutes too.
Okay, well, let's go to some film here of a conventional fisherman using a lure in a stream, and he's probably using, 15, 20-pound test line there. He just hooked a Chinook or a steelhead, let's say. Now, he's going to battle that fish, and it's going downstream with the current. Now, I mean, Dick, 2-pound test line, thread like that, you can't really lean back and expect to turn a fish, can you?
Oh, no, you don't turn a fish. I'll be surprised if this gentleman turns a fish. I don't care whether he's fishing 30 pounds or what, but the force of the current plus what the fish does will take him right away from you. And when we select a site along the river, we have to have moving room. We can't stand there and battle that thing and expect to bring him up. We have to follow him, and if we run out of water with our waders on, we just drop the rod and break them off and come back because our rivers are just full of fish. We don't get upset over losing 1 or 2 or 3.
You feel that you catch a lot more fish, no, maybe not catch, but hook a lot more fish per hour than a guy with heavier line?
Oh, we know we do. We fish crowds, so we can make our comparisons. And we know we hook more fish per hour than any other fisherman fishing heavier than we do. It's that light leader that presents that offering, whether it's spawn, whether it's a fly or a yarn, to the fish in a much less threatening manner.
So a light line hooks more fish, but doesn't necessarily catch more.
Oh,
bring them to
definitely
creel.
not. We figure we lose 75% of our fish in the spring and in the fall when the waters are fairly warm.
Okay, now watch this fella. He's horsing that salmon up there, and I think that lure is going to pop right out of his mouth. This oftentimes happens with a fish like this. You generally are going to break the line, though, before pulling out.
Well, we wouldn't try to hold a fish up on a surface like this gentleman is. This is an
There it
excellent
goes.
way to
Yeah.
lose the fish. You
Well-
just don't keep that fish on the surface. He doesn't belong up there.
How long of a battle do you normally have with a fish using light line like this?
We lose or land them in 10 minutes. But we lose a lot of fish.
One or the other.
Yes.
Okay, and you have these world records. I want to find out what kind of knot you tie. We'll simulate that this is the hook or the lure. Show me what you do with that monofilament thread on a hook.
Well, we go what we call 2 times through. 1 time through the eye of the guide, then we come through again and we maintain that loop right out there, and then we go to our little our cinch, and we will wrap that piece of mono around the other piece of mono, the main line, 5 or 6 times if it's a very light leader. If you get a heavier weight mono, 5 or 6 that isn't necessary. And then you come back through
Those two.
pinch it off. Now, if this was monofilament, we lick it because we would like a little protection against the heat buildup when we pull it down tight, and we're not going to pull this rope down tight like you would mono. It's not going to slide. But those are the mechanics of tying this knot. Now, let me go through it again real quick here.
Okay, this is the
2
double time through. This is how you tie 2-pound test line, and of course you don't cinch it up. Go ahead and do it. real quick.
We've done this for years, Fred, and son of a gun, if Berkeley didn't come along and call it the trilene knot. If we'd have known that, heck, we could have called it the Trost knot years ago.
Okay.
And then come right back through.
Right back through. That's how it's done. World record fish. Write to us if you want more information, and we'll get you in touch with Dick Swan in this world record steelheading tournament. You think anybody's going to catch a bigger one this year?
We definitely hope so.
Hope so. Well, we'll see what happens. Right now, let's move on now over here to our Weekend Outdoor Outlook. We have a surprise for somebody for this summer. Well, we are at a very awkward time in the weather right now. Ed, let's make somebody happy here. Turn it over. This is from Outdoorama. If you went to Outdoorama and signed up when you walked in the show for a free fly-in fishing trip, and your name comes out right now, you're going to be flying with Lee Cole up in Ontario, and guess who gets the free trip? Jack Baker from Detroit. Okay, Jack, you're the lucky one. Congratulations. Well, he's got a fly-in fishing trip. Right now, let's talk about what's coming up this weekend through all this snow and this miserable cold weather for steelhead fishermen. I have Stan Levency on the phone. Stan, do you have any hot spots for fishermen this weekend?
Unfortunately, I don't have any real hot spots where there's lots of steelhead reported, but all the major rivers have fishable populations of them, and I think if we get a break in the weather,
well, what kind of break do you mean? What do we need? What are we looking for?
Well, we need really low water and warm weather for ideal. So I guess in summary, I'd say that the fishermen have to get out, and if the water's high, pick on the smaller stream. Now, for instance, I know of one fisherman up on the Platte this morning, lives right up there, picked up a nice 14-pounder this morning.
That's good.
And yesterday he picked up another good-sized one. So there's fish around.
Well, good. Thank you very much, Stan. Hey, Dick Swan, come on in here. Stan Levency says there are fish around. They're in the streams, but they haven't been hitting generally because of this cold, cold water. You're going to be headquartered where for the tournament?
We're going to headquarter in Wellston on the Big Manistee at Tippy Dam, Fred.
And where do you expect most of the fish will be taken? Platte, Tippy?
Well, not the Platte. The Platte's sort of running out of fish. We got the Betsy or a Tippy or the Little Manistee. But the waters all over the state are open.
Good. Thank you. Well, write to us right here if you want information. Michigan Outdoors, Box 1, East Lansing, 48823, and we'll be right back with more Michigan Outdoors next week.
Funding for the preceding program was made possible in part by a grant from Farm Bureau Insurance Group and its agents throughout Michigan.
From the rugged shore and woodlands of the north, its history of copper mines and iron ore, the Great Lakes fisheries. To the farmlands of the southern counties we'll look around again, and all that waits the sportsman in the state of Michigan. Sometimes when the moon brings out the diamonds in the snow, and the stillness of the forest lies encased in Arctic cold, the wind might whisper through the trees, listen if you can, it tells you of the beauty in the state of Michigan.